First up on the show, Startup Mahakumbh, which is the first of its kind mega confluence of startups which started today at the Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. Now, this three-day event has more than 1,000 startup exhibits, 1,000 plus investors with more than 500 incubators and accelerators. This event aims to showcase some of the prominent hubs of innovation, the latest trends and technology, along with sector-specific insights. Akhil Vishwanath, who's been covering this event for us, joins us with what the first day was looking like. Akhil.
Over 2 decades of innovation and technological tenacity, that was what was on display on day one at the Startup Mahakumbh. The 3-day event, which is nothing like India has ever seen before, has been spearheaded by the government and veteran investors to showcase the prowess of the Indian startup ecosystem, which is the 3rd largest in the world. To just share some numbers with you, in attendance today were more than 1,000 startups, 1,000 investors, more than 500 startups and incubators, and more than 5,000 future entrepreneurs. Now, what we have to remember is the largest get-together of the Indian startup ecosystem ever has come at a time when there has been a funding slump, with funding returning to pre-pandemic levels over the last couple of years. So, to solve for this problem and to sustain momentum in the Indian startup ecosystem, over 1,000 participating startups have been split into 10 broad categories or themes such as climate tech, deep tech, AI plus SaaS and others, and each subsector of the startup ecosystem has its own pavilion, and these pavilions act as a way to connect startup founders with investors to mobilize capital, as mobilizing capital has been a key challenge in the recent times. Back to you.
Akhil, thanks very much for bringing us that report. One of the largest gatherings of startup ecosystem in India, and staying with that Startup Mahakumbh, India will become the hub of innovation in the world. That is the word coming in from Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. Speaking to my colleague Akhil Vishwanathan earlier, Piyush Goyal emphasized that Startup Mahakumbh is going to be an annual event and more. Take a look.
How is the Josh when it comes to Startup Mahakumbh?
High, sir. I think the Josh is truly high. The Josh is truly very, very infectious. And the Josh is visible in all the young men and women who are not only displaying their wonderful ideas, who are demonstrating that Bharat will become the hub of innovation in the world, and all the youngsters who have come from across the length and breadth of the country are going to go back encouraged to do much more, much better. We want competition amongst all these young startups, so that every Indian gets a better life in the future.
You saw the curtain raiser, you said you want this to be an annual event. Is it going to be an annual event?
Yes, this Startup Mahakumbh is going to be an annual event. And I believe that it's going to get bigger and bigger. Even this time we have a wait list. We have not been able to accommodate all those who wanted to participate. But I'm sure the wonderful work the organizers have done this year will encourage more of us to put in greater effort to make India truly the startup hub of the world.
An annual event that is going to get bigger. That was the Commerce Minister. Now let's hear out from the industry, because investors believe that funding has bounced back. At the Startup Mahakumbh, Rajan Anandan, the MD of Peak 15, said that they are back to pre-COVID levels in terms of funding, and he added that the seed and Series A market looks very active. He also is betting big on AI, software and deep tech companies. Here's a slice of his conversation with my colleague Akhil.
How is it, Josh?
You know, I've been here for the last 4 hours, and I can't tell you how excited I am. Startup Mahakumbh, which is happening today and for the next 2 days in Delhi, is the largest gathering of startup founders, of investors, of mentors, of policymakers. And I think over the next several days, we're going to see thousands of young students who want to start up come here, right? And there's 1,000 startups, Indian startups, that are actually here, where they have a booth or a stall where they're talking about the companies. So last 4 hours, I've met several, I think I've probably met 100 of the 1,000, and I can't tell you how excited I am, because the kind of innovation that we're seeing across every single sector in India is really, really exciting, right? There are 10 sort of pavilions, if you will, right? One's on climate, one's on AI, one's on consumer brands, one's on agriculture, and so on and so forth. And every single one of them has just amazing set of innovators that are, you know, developing companies, many of which we haven't seen in the world before. So I think that's very exciting.
What's the rationale behind sort of taking this number between $8 and $12 billion for this year? Are we back to pre-pandemic levels, and is it a new normal?
Yeah, I mean, look, basically we are back to normal. It's not a new normal, right? I think what everybody forgets is that the pandemic era was a very, very unusual environment where globally interest rates went to zero, $7 trillion went into the US markets. A lot of it flowed into every asset class. Crypto, hit $3 trillion. Real estate was booming, private capital was booming, private credit was booming. So actually what we are back to is just normal. I think we should not peg anything actually, whether it's funding, whether it's real estate prices, whether it's hopefully, thank God, like lockdowns, right? Imagine if you had to have lockdowns. Would you rather have $10 billion and no lockdowns, or would you rather have, $25 billion and lockdowns? So what we're really back to is normal. So if you go back to the 2019 and prior 3-4 years, right, we were running at between $7 and $12 billion of annual funding. Last year was $7 billion. It was a little below normal. But the reality is between 2021 and 2022, India had $70 billion that got invested into startups, right? So if you say the average run rate was 10 billion, we had 7 years worth of funding that went into our ecosystem in 2 years. That's a lot, right? So it's obviously natural that we normalize now. And I think this year, we'll land between 8 and 12 billion, I think, based on the first couple of months. But look, what I can tell you is, we run an investment firm where we invest from idea through pre-IPO, right? We invest at every stage. What I can tell you is, look, the early stage market, the seed and Series A market, is very, very active. The growth market has been slow as, not just in India, by the way. The growth markets have been slow around the world because the best growth stage companies raised a lot of capital in 2021 at those sorts of prices. So either those companies are growing to those valuations, or maybe towards the end of this year, early next year, they will raise capital at same or slightly lower prices. So we think the growth market will come back, whether it's a couple of quarters from now, end of this year. But look, the reality is India has $20 billion of dry powder between venture capital and private equity. That's 1.6 lakh crore, right, of committed capital that is not invested. And all of that capital is going to go into private companies.
What we've seen is the recent cohorts are being dominated by AI and deep tech startups. Is that a conscious thing to have more AI and deep tech startups in these cohorts? Or is it that we have more founders sort of starting up in AI and deep tech?
Yeah, so look, you're absolutely right. The last cohort of Surge, which is our 9th cohort of Surge, had over 65% of our companies were AI, software, and deep tech. Deep tech being, we had our first 2 semiconductor companies, we had a green hydrogen electrolyzer company, advanced manufacturing company. And similarly, if you look at our most recent 3rd cohort of Spark, which is the program that we have for female founders, large number of AI and software companies. I think it's important to keep in mind that we don't look for a specific sector, right? We're trying to partner with the best founders who are trying to build very large companies, right? And cohort to cohort, you'll see this vary. So for instance, if you go to the 8th cohort of Surge, we had a large number of consumer companies, right? If you look at our next cohort of Surge, which will be towards, just right after the summer, you'll actually see a very different mix. So we don't really set out to say we're going to have this many AI companies or this many deep tech companies or this many consumer companies. It really depends on what are the companies at any given point in time that we partner with that we think are extraordinary entrepreneurs who are trying to build big companies. In fact, I've mentioned this this morning on at the opening plenary of Startup Mahakumbh. In the US today, both startups and venture capital is all only about one thing, which is AI, and that's artificial intelligence. India today is about AI squared, but the first AI is all about India. Right? Because what we are seeing is innovation across every single sector. Consumer brands, consumer vertical commerce, travel, gaming, healthcare, education, financial services. India has $1 trillion credit gap on consumer, $1 trillion credit gap on SMEs, right? Financial services, we have 25 unicorns as a nation who are financial services and fintech unicorns, but we're going to have hundreds of them simply because of the needs that the country has. And then you look at, so that's the first AI, it's all about India, but the AI squared, the second AI is about AI, which is artificial intelligence, right? So we have a lot of innovation in AI, but we also have extraordinary levels of innovation in every single sector in India, and we think that's a very exciting place to be.
Well, InfoEdge founder Sanjeev Bichchandani also echoes the same sentiment with regards to funding. He said that there is enough money for early stage companies in India. At the Startup Mahakumbh, he batted for an alternative for Google Play Store. Speaking to Akhil Vishwanath, he said that a single player with 96% market share is a structural problem. Take a look at that conversation.
So how's the Josh?
Pretty good. You were seeing it for yourself. I know it's day 1, first half, and we're seeing a large crowd in the expo. We had a packed hall in the inaugural session, in the plenaries. So far so good, and it's all going well.
So this event has come at a time when, what we have, the so-called funding winter, but at the same time, there's a lot of innovation that we're celebrating here over the last couple of decades, not just the last 2 years. It's come at a very crucial time for the Indian startup ecosystem. How much of a morale booster is it going to be?
देखिए कहने के लिए फंडिंग विंटर है या थी, पर आप देख रहे हो फंडिंग विंटर नहीं है, right? We have over 1,000 investors here. Of course, investors are going to be discerning, and they're going to figure out where they want to invest and where they don't want to invest. But there's enough money for early stage companies in India.
There is enough money for early stage companies in India, but so when do you expect funding to bounce back?
Well, the last 2 months have been pretty good already for early stage, as Mr. Rajan Anand said in his panel discussion this morning. So I think we are bouncing back.
So some of the challenges that founders could be facing today, be it with business models with the coming of AI, or some of the metrics that investors could be asking for them, what would you say are some of the top challenges for investors trying to raise funds in this environment?
If you are growth stage, which means that you've traversed a distance, you better be having a path to profit and some decent revenue streams. Early stage, it depends on the team, the founder, the opportunity, the idea, the innovativeness, the relevance, early assessments of that, and that was always the case. Nothing new there.
Do you have a time frame in mind when the funding could bounce back? We've been hearing that it can't bounce back to the 2021 levels, but what would you say would be the new normal, and what should we be expecting?
Well, the new normal is what it was before pre-COVID, and now it's increasing from there. So I think it's a good trend.
And one of the key factors that we've seen, one of the key challenges that we've seen is certainly when it comes to Google Play Store. Now we had InfoEdge apps such as Naukri that were delisted and sort of reinstated as well. We have corporate governance issues as well that we've seen, but regulatory and corporate governance issues have remained over the last couple of years, and they've come to the fore as well. So how would you address some of these challenges?
So, a few companies have made the news for perhaps the wrong reasons. I think there are very, very many more companies that don't get talked about. They're very well governed. And if you look at the value created by Zomato, the value created by Policy Bazaar, between the two of them, there are close to 2 lakh crores. That far exceeds the total amount of money that went into those companies where some bad news has come. So the good news outweighs the bad news, but the good news does not make news.
On the Play Store front, what happened? And you did come out and you called for a domestic app store, for an India-based app store for Indian apps. How strongly would you demand for it now?
No, I think strategically that's the direction industry must evaluate, government must evaluate. Certainly, you don't want crazy monopoly power with anybody. With a 96% share, I think that's a problem structurally. But again, to make it work, you have to give customers a better offering.
All right, so those are some of the top voices from the first day of the Startup Mahakumbh. On that note, we're going to slip into a short break, but up next, we have more news from you. Rapidcanvas has raised $7.5 million in a seed funding round. What is the company offering and how will it use these funds? We'll get you all of those answers right after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching Startup Street. Now, our auto artificial intelligence platform Rapidcanvas today announced that it has raised $7.5 million in a seed funding round led by Axel and also the launch of its auto AI program. These funds are going to be used to fuel both customer acquisition as well as retention. The company is now, we have now the company's co-founder and CEO joining in to tell us more about this funding and about the company, Rahul Pangam. Rahul, thanks very much for your time here on CNBC-TV18 and welcome to Startup Street. Very briefly for our viewers, tell us about Rapidcanvas. It's a new company that you've launched. What you offer for businesses as an AI platform, which is unique in its offering.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ritu, for having me on the show. Rapidcanvas is an AI platform that allows business users to build AI applications without requiring coding or software development expertise and without having a sort of deep expertise in data science. You know, traditionally AI platforms have been requiring both those skills, right? And so Rapidcanvas is a shift from that point of view.
Okay, before we get to the funding, give us a sense of what kind of clients have you already signed on for this, product that you've launched, or what is in the pipeline, even in terms of geographies. Where's the focus going to be?
Yeah, so Rapidcanvas is a global company. We have clients specific focus in 3 geographies, right? So US, India, and Brazil. And the clients we have signed up thus far are across various sectors. And again, primarily the focus for us is financial services, manufacturing, retail, renewable energy. So we have multiple different clients across different sectors, across different geographies. And that's a sort of very concerted effort on our part, because when you have a platform like Rapidcanvas that has a broad appeal and applicability, we do want to make sure that, coming right out of the gate, coming out of stealth, we're able to stand behind our promise that we can and have worked with clients in those different sectors.
All right. Rahul, could you give us a sense of who some of your bigger clients are? Any names you could share with us, or how many you're intending to sign on now that you've launched your product?
Yeah, we not all our clients let us publicly disclose their names, so we have some Fortune 200 clients. But I can give you a few examples in some of the markets, right? So in Brazil, we have an automotive parts manufacturer company called MTE Thompson, which is again a global company. In US, we have a couple of companies that are on both sides of the spectrum. One example would be AutoFi, which is a SaaS platform for auto lending. And in India, we work with closely with Suzlon, which is a darling of the renewable energy sector. So those are 3 examples that I can share with you right now that companies we're working with.
Okay, to get to that $7.5 million funding, I mean, all companies, of course, want to acquire more customers, they want to retain them. But how exactly do you propose to deploy this capital, and how long will it last you?
Yeah, so couple of ways to look at this, right? One is we are in sort of cutting edge AI, right? This auto AI technology. And we can't sit on our laurels like, hey, we have a product ready to go. Like every week, a new innovation happens and we have to stay ahead of the curve, right? And we have to keep building, investing in R&D. So a huge part of that capital will be invested in R&D. And the second thing is, now that we have, we have proven the technology to work across different sectors, work across different geographies, we want to then, take it out to the different markets with a sort of commercial team in place, right? The early sort of interactions were through founders and our networks, right? So we're investing heavily in commercial appeal, outreach, go-to-market, marketing and sales activities. So those are the 2 broad areas where we plan to deploy these funds.
Rahul, you said US, Brazil, and India, these are some of the key markets that you're going to focus on. I just wanted to get a sense of, what sort of revenue contribution are you eyeing from each? Is India going to be the larger one of the 3?
Of course, the bigger spend per customer, is heavy in the US. Because of the growth of the ecosystem in India, you see more volume of customers coming from India. But our thesis remains sort of very focused, which is we want to be a global company. We want as broad an applicability and usability of the platform. So we'll be investing in all the markets where, like I said, the 3 markets that we're currently in. And they have different flavors, right? In some markets, you have a lot of companies that are spread across multiple sectors, but have smaller ticket sizes. In other markets, you may see larger ticket sizes, bigger enterprises spending, but fewer companies in those markets. So we want to be broad. We want to be appealing to a broad base, and so we'll continue to invest in all 3 of them.
Okay, Rahul, final word. Since you're a young company that's just launched, what do the next few years look like in terms of growth that you're eyeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I see this is we have had this generative AI chat GPT-3 moment, and AI has sort of penetrated the public conscience, right? And we have seen a step function change in awareness and spend. And the next decade is going to be like a boom, for AI, and actually enterprises benefiting from AI. And so we see a long runway here. We see a long road ahead, and one that is very promising for companies like us, which are trying to enable business users who so far have been not really part of this AI revolution, right? Going forward, every business user should be able to control their own destiny through AI.
Yeah. All right, Rahul, thanks very much for joining in and sharing your thoughts with us. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Same here, Ritu. Thank you so much.
Okay, on that note, we're going to wrap up this edition of Startup Street. Thanks very much for tuning in. But stay with CNBC-TV18. More news and updates will continue on the other side.
For more news and updates, all you need to do is follow CNBC-TV18 on all of our digital platforms.